Hey everyone, PenguinSal here. We're back today with another indie game review. This time is a very popular one that I'm sure you've heard of. There's a good chance you've played if you play a lot of games in this sphere, and that is Vampire Survivors. Now, Vampire Survivors, I will have to give a lot of credit to in that it essentially popularized and created the concept of the quote-unquote bullet heaven style games, which is, if you're familiar with bullet hells, that's where you control your character and there's a million projectiles that you're trying to avoid from the enemies. Well, bullet heaven is the opposite. You are responsible for making all of the projectiles that are going out on the screen, and in most of these games, the monsters, they don't really do anything other than spawn endlessly and more of them with more health, and they just try to engulf you in endless monsters and endless waves of monsters. And Vampire Survivors essentially was the first of this, at least the first really popular one. I also give a lot of credit to the developers. One, because they sold so many copies of this game because they initially marketed it at $2.99. $2.99 for this is such a great way to sell so many copies of it, because people like me see it and they're like, huh, this looks like it could be fun. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to it, but for $2.99 there's nothing to lose. And if you're able to get, 10 hours out of it or more, a lot of people putting a lot more than that, in $2.99, then the value there is just large. It's just an insane amount of value at that price point. While I do think that its price has been raised since then, I think it may be $4.99 or $5.99 or something like that now. They have also added a ton of free DLC content to the game and more stages and achievements and things to unlock. So essentially how this game plays out is you pick one of the characters. There are 15 characters or something like that, most of which have to be unlocked outside of the game. So essentially you pick the first character. He has a whip ability, and what you do is all you do is control your guy's movement. So you have to move towards enemies to have them in the range of your attacks, but you also are trying to run away from them so they're not taking down your health bar. And essentially, when you destroy enemies, there's a chance that they drop an experience crystal, and so you pick up these little crystals, your experience bar goes up, and you level up. And at level ups, you unlock either weapons or passive buffs. You can have 6 of both. You can have 6 items for weapons and 6 items that are passive buffs. The passive buffs can be things like movement speed, area of effect, size, increased luck so you get better drops, increased experience so you level up faster, and then you also get the weapons, which each character starts with one of the different weapons, but there's probably something like between 15 and 20 weapons in the game. There's a pretty good variety here. I think one of the really cool mechanics that they have is if you pick a specific weapon and its counterpart passive, when the weapon levels up fully, it becomes a better version of itself. So essentially, if you pick something like the throwing knife, it goes up to level 8, and at every level up, it gets something like increased damage, increased size of projectile, more projectiles thrown, increased cooldowns. They have things like that. But if you equip it with its partner passive spell, which in this case is the one for it's like a gauntlet thing that does projectile speed increases, and you level it up all the way, then you get an increased throwing knife, like the evolution of it, which allows you to throw them endlessly with no cooldown. That's really how you can get really good and broken builds in this game, is by pairing these up appropriately so that a lot of these get their evolved forms, which are essentially just way better versions of the base weapon. Essentially how this game plays out is you fight off these enemies. Every minute they change what comes out. It could be a different type of monster, it could be more monsters, it could be a mini boss, and essentially you're trying to survive for 30 minutes. I won't tell you what happens at 30 minutes, but it's not my favorite thing about the game. It's an issue that I have with the game. I don't really know what the point of it is for myself. Also, I think one of the things about this, too, is I do think there is, while every weapon and passive does have its value, I think there are some that are just generally better, in my opinion. There's, like I said, there's like 15 characters. There's really only a couple that I play as because I like their either starting abilities or their weapons just better. But there are different maps to unlock. There's different achievements. Inside the game, when you're doing your runs, you do collect money that can be used outside of the game in between runs to unlock more characters or get passive permanent upgrades, which can be things like more health, more regen, movement speed, reduced cooldowns. There's one that allows you to have a 1 revive, so when you die once, you can be revived at half health. There's a lot of good content in this game. Like I said, this is essentially the father of the modern bullet heaven genre, which there are a lot of those now. Soulstone Survivors, 20 Minutes Till Dawn, Brotato. There are a ton of games that have followed in this game's footsteps, many of which I've played. Halls of Torment, we reviewed recently. That was one of these in the same genre that did play similarly to Vampire Survivors. If you haven't tried this out, it's really low price. It's worth it to see if you like this type of game. It's a great entry into this genre because it is very minimalist. I'd say give it a try if you haven't. There is a link for it down in the description of the video if you'd like to check out Vampire Survivors further for yourself. If you like what you saw here in this review, feel free to give the video a like. Comment down below and tell me if Vampire Survivors is a game that you've put a lot of hours into, and you know, if it was your doorway into Bullet Heavens and what other ones you've played. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you'd like to do so and keep following along with the reviews that we put out for these indie games, it would help us grow a lot, which would help us be able to continue doing what we've been doing, which has been a lot of fun for us, and hopefully for you guys as well. So that was Vampire Survivors. Like I said, the father of the modern bullet heaven genre. Let me know what you guys think about this one, and I appreciate you watching.